Welcome to Cardboard Conjecture. We're a podcast about board games where we have opinions and conclusions formed on the basis of incomplete information. This episode of Cardboard Conjecture is brought to you by these great Saskatoon businesses: Amazing Stories Comics on 8th Street, Dragon's Den Games on 8th Street, and Breakout Escape Rooms on Faithful Avenue. Well, hello there. How's it going, eh? This is Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday, and this is a special weekly episode that's a compilation of all the board games that we've been playing recently. And we are proud to announce that we have another member of the cast of Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday, Cormier from Off the Page Games. And contributing on this episode are the Cardboard Kid, Cormier, the Meeple Dungeon, of Dyson Men, Mr. Boardgames, Friday Night Games, definitely a board game podcast, Dyson Dragons, the Tabletop Bellhop, and Cardboard Conjecture. Remember to check out the show notes for the links to all of the content creators of the Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday cast, and sit back and enjoy.
Hi everyone, I'm the Cardboard Kid. If you don't know me, I'm 11 years old and I've reviewed games on YouTube since April 2017. I have nearly 290 reviews, plus dozens of interviews and features. My latest was this past Friday, Chai Tea for Two, and my next will be up this Friday. I talked a bit about Destinies the last time I was on Whatcha Been Playing Wednesdays, and I said I was very impressed with the first two adventures. Now that we wrapped up the base game, I can say that I loved it. We had a game-breaking app issue, but reached out to Lucky Duck Games and learned it was patched a day or two later. Otherwise, it's as smooth as you'd expect from the company that makes Chronicles of Crime. Anyhow, Destinies really does feel like a light RPG in a dark, dark world. The player development, story choices, race element, and luck mitigation all come together to give the players a good time. I talk about this more in the review I wrote this past weekend, but downtime can be an issue in this 2 to 3 hour game. We played Burgle Brothers 2, The Casino Caper, Sunday night, and let me first remind everyone that I love the first game. I love pretty much every Tim Powers game, and even enjoy in some way the ones I don't. Anyhow, this feels like Burgle Brothers 1 in general gameplay. Move and or peek around a grid, avoid the guard, and crack the safe and escape before you're caught. The two event types tied to locations feel a bit more thematic than you triggering one just because you didn't move enough on your turn. While you may miss out on the positive effects of them compared to the original game, it means the negative ones don't hit as frequently. The bouncer also always moves 3 rooms unless he's on the hunt, rather than a number determined by a die roll. Some rooms have casino chips with civilians that thematically mess you up, salespeople and drunks, for example. You don't know what the chip will reveal until you peek or enter a room. In our one playthrough, so keep that in mind, we did find it possible to be locked out of turns until something else happened. Sorry, Dad. Hopefully, with experience, we find a way to unlock someone so they can actually do something on their turns again before we save them. Due to a player pulling out, Norm, Dad figured out a way for us to play Call of Cthulhu's Alone Against the Flames as a co-op over Discord with Ariel. It worked pretty well. We all discussed the choices for our character and rotated roles in alphabetical order. As with all COC games, we succeeded without any problems, or... no, wait a second. We died a horrible, horrible death. If all goes as planned, we'll be back to D&D this upcoming Sunday for a few weeks until we hit a break in the action, and Dad runs our next full COC adventure. That's about all for now. If you want to see photos and updates on what I'm playing, follow me on Twitter at cardboard_kid. For weekly reviews, check out my YouTube channel, The Cardboard Kid. Please stay safe. Happy gaming!
Hi there, this is Jay Cormier from Off the Page Games. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Off the Page Games. What have I been playing recently? Well, you know, with the pandemic and with me having two 4-year-old boys, I'm not playing a lot of, you know, grown-up games. But I am still doing some play testing. And I have been a developer, along with Graham Jans, on the Fall of the Mountain King game. So I've been playing that a bunch lately. And I thought I'd chat about that one because that one is going to Kickstarter on June 1st. So this game is like a prequel to the game that Graham and I designed called In the Hall of the Mountain King. This one we did not designed by someone else. But this one is one we helped to develop and kind of bring to fruition a little bit. And I'm really excited about this one because it's kind of like a prequel in that it's happening before... in the Hall of the Mountain King. So this is what happens when the Mountain King falls due to gnomes invading. And it's got a lot of interesting things going for it. And I can appreciate why Burnt Island Games thought to put it in this universe because it has a really interesting mechanic called the Ancestry. And basically what it is you start off with a 2x3 grid of kind of like actions you can take. And there's a phase before every age, and there's 3 ages, in which you draft 4 more of these cards, and you have to place these cards such that they cover up at least one of those squares in the 2x3 grid, thereby covering up an action with a new card that has all sorts of new actions on it. And so you're kind of tailoring and creating your own action grid of things you can do. And it's really neat how it works too, because basically on your turn, you can either do one small action. And a small action is when one of your little icons is off on its own, just on its own. You do that as a small action, you get to do one of those little things. And on your turn, if you do a small action, you can do 2 small actions in a turn. That's pretty cool. But you can also do a big action. And a big action is some of these squares are a value of 2 of those actions. And if you just do a big action, you just get to do that once. However, if you can make a contiguous path of those actions, you can do all of those as one big action. So if you want to like recruit, I think they call it bolster, you can bolster for as many that are contiguously connected. And as you do these actions, you place little tokens on your, again, it's called the Ancestry board, these little action spaces. And what's also neat about this Ancestry is that once you place tokens on them, they act as pathway connectors for other things that can be contiguous. And it becomes this really neat puzzle of placing the, choosing actions to take such that it'll make other things contiguous and connected so that you can have bigger actions later on. And so what are you doing in the game? Basically, you each start in 2 different layers on the board. Every player starts in 2 different layers. And there is 2 different sides to the board depending on your player count. And you're trying to bolster your units, gain more units. You're trying to then advance your units out onto the board. The board looks like a really very cool looking map. And you can either go into a location that has nothing in it. You can go in a location that has other people in it. There is no direct attacking of other units, although gnomes come into play and they come in and they attack and you can attack them. So it's not player versus player in that sense from an attacking perspective, but there is combat and attacking and you can lose forces to the gnomes. Some of it is mitigatable. You can actually peek at some of the information of where the gnomes are going to be coming from. And you get, every time you kind of advance into a region that you now can have ownership of and you kind of take over control of, you get what's called a vote in that. It's not a district. It's like a region. It's like a clan. It's in the clan, and there's I think 7 different clans, and one of the reasons why you're doing that is at the very end of the game, whoever has the most votes in each clan gets a bunch of points. So it's kind of like area majority scoring. And as I said, it takes place over 3 ages. The first 2 ages, the scoring at the end of each one is similar in that you get a lot of points for every different colored region that you belong to. And I can't remember what they call those domains. I can't remember the terminology, but it doesn't matter. So you really want to spread out really far and kind of dominate as much as possible. In the meantime, while you're doing that, you're also trying to influence the champions. So in this game, the champions still exist, and they give you special amazing powers and sometimes give you another unit on the board that have extra powers for the next round. Really, really cool. So the first 2 ages are like that. But the third age, that scoring is gone, so there is no more points for trying to spread out and get into other zones. But there are all these great halls throughout the land, and you now want to have area majority scoring around those great halls. And they're varying points from 4 all the way up to 12. So you want to kind of position and make sure you have more than anyone else. And it's a little bit like Tikal in that sense, as far as scoring for the temples in a way. It's really, really cool. And so the different actions you can take bolster, which increases your units. You can take advance, which allows you to move out. And advance works very specifically in that you choose a territory, a region, a cave, a tunnel that you want to go into, and then you can move as many units into that that you paid for, that as far as how many of those icons you had in your ancestry. So that's cool. You can influence as an action. That's how many votes you get to place on all the champions that change every single round. And you can take the gnome action, and the gnome action, there's like a kind of like a gnome wheel, and it moves the gnome around, and you get to take all these other types of actions that kind of like break some of the rules and do a little funky things, and it might even trigger the gnomes attacking, of which you may or may not have a little bit of control over, trying to make sure they go into your enemy's encampment instead of yours. So all in all, it's really clever. Again, the ancestry board is going to be super clever. I think that's where Helena and the team thought there was some connection to In the Hall of the Mountain King when they first saw this pitch, because it was pitched not as a game that was in its world, but it feels like that this mechanic of this ancestry, of how you kind of build it, while it's not a cascading mechanic like In the Hall of the Mountain King, it's another clever mechanic gathering mechanic. It's another concept for gathering resources, and it's really, really fun to play. So that's Follow the Mountain King. Check for it on June 1st from Bird Island Games and on Kickstarter. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. I can't wait for other people to check it out.
Hello everybody, it's Rob and Anna Marie from the Meeple Dungeon.
Hello.
And we are back recording for the Whatcha Been Playing Wednesdays podcast. And over the last couple weeks, we've been playing one game in particular. What game have we been playing, Anna Marie?
We've been playing After the Empire, designed by Ryan Mock and Evan Halbert, and published by Grey Fox Games.
Yeah, After the Empire. A super cool game here. So it's a worker placement game and resource management game mixed in with tower defense. So this is the first time I've really seen this particular combination of mechanics in a game. And so thematically, the Roman Empire has fallen, and each player will be playing as their own fiefdom, their own castle, and their own community, and we're going to be fighting for resources from the countryside, and trying to have the biggest, richest fiefdom in this particular area. And you are going to, on your turn, be using workers to go out onto the board and gather resources and get building cards and rescue, what do they call them in this? Refugees in this game. They're just adding people to your fiefdom. And you're going to be gathering these resources, and you're going to be on your own player board building physically your own castle, which is really cool. You start off with a wooden castle, but you're going to be building new walls out of rock, and you're going to be building turrets with archers in them, and all sorts of cool stuff. Some of the coolest components.
Very cool.
And some of the coolest stuff that stands out on a table that I've ever played with. And so everyone that's been following our Twitter kind of knows what my thoughts on this game are. So, Anna Marie, what did you like or dislike about this game?
Oh, no, I like this game.
Yeah, okay.
It was...
It's no secret.
No, it's very good. The worker placement and the resource management in this game were they were very interesting because there were so many worker placement options on the board. Lots
of options.
So you want to go everywhere. It's really hard to choose. Now, because we're playing a 2-player game, we had to it scales back, and so there's only, if there are 3 spots available with a 2-player game, there's only 1 spot available.
Right.
So
yes, so there's lots of places to go, but sometimes only one person can go there.
Right, and you have to figure out which place do I want to go the most, and if I go there and he goes there, am I going to be okay that I don't get to go there? And so that's really neat. It's neat that they have all those places to go. There's one place that I always forget about, and I think it would really help me out. Yeah. That traveling merchant space where you can trade resources.
Yeah, I haven't used it much either.
No, but I forget about it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I want to play more so I can try out all the different things there. But there are different strategies too, like the stockpile. So there's this one action, a stockpile, and that's what allows you to build up your castle, your stronghold, really. And it costs your wood and your rock or iron or whatever it is.
Yep.
And it's like, do I use a worker, one of my workers? At the beginning you don't have very many.
No, you start with 3 and you end up with 5.
So it's like, it's important because you're like, oh, do I build up my castle every turn, or do I hold off and try to build up my resources so that I can, because you can build as much as you want in one of those stockpile turns, which I thought was neat. So you didn't just like go here and you can build a turret. And no, you can build like 2 turrets and 3 walls, and
for whatever resources you have, you can use.
Yeah, but then if you wait too long, you're just gonna get sacked all the time. So it's like a balance. It's interesting.
We should mention that the way this game plays out is on your turn, you're going to be putting your workers out there and getting these resources and getting these extra cards and building your castle up, because at the end of each round or season, you get invaded by these, I don't know what they call them, just invaders.
I think it's just people trying to take over your fiefdom, right?
And they're trying to break down into your castle and steal your gold. So the cool thing in this game is your victory points are your money. And so the more gold you have, the more victory points you have. But
the more gold you
have, the more invaders are coming to knock down your wall. So you have to be really, really careful balancing how much gold you have, because on every round they're going to be flipping out these cards and you're going to have invaders coming from all different directions.
And you don't know where they're coming from.
No, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know how many are coming. And the more gold you have, the higher a chance you have at seeing more and more of these guys show up at your front door.
Yeah.
And it's super, super cool. It's super neat way of doing this idea of this type of game. And yeah, you're just trying to build your castle the best you can to hold it so that you don't get sacked. Because if you do get sacked, depending on where you are on the gold track, you are going to drop down roughly 50% of your gold is going to be lost, and that's victory points. So yeah, you want to have a whole bunch of gold, but you don't, because you're going to get run over by all these invaders trying to come and get your gold. So it's just super, super cool. I love that part of the game.
Yeah, the combat is the most, I think, intricate part of the game.
It is.
Once you get it, it's totally fine.
It was a little difficult.
It was confusing for me to figure out.
To figure out exactly what we needed
Mostly
to do.
the siege cards. They're invader cards, which are pretty standard, and they're siege cards, and those ones were, I don't know why, it took me a while to wrap my head around, but I get it now. But
then, even that aside, there's a bunch of steps to combat where you have to use your archers first and your turrets, and then you get to move guys around, and then guys are going to start breaking down your walls, and then you get to
melee.
You get to melee them if they break into your castle, and all these cool things. Really, really cool. The one thing the one bad thing I can say is the components. The components are awesome, but all the characters, all the troops and soldiers are just cubes, and the cubes don't sit quite right on the castle walls, and they just, I don't know, they fall off, and it's a bit fiddly, but we're going to get the upgrade pack to get all the little real soldiers to put on there, so I think they're a little easier.
Hopefully help that a little bit.
Yeah, to stand on the walls a little bit better than these cubes. Yeah. But that's pretty minor, to be honest, because the gameplay really is awesome. Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to mention about building up your castles, which I thought was really cool, is that when the invaders come and say your castle wall gets knocked over, inside your wall you've got resources that act as like barriers. So if those ever get if your wall gets taken away, the resources you get to put back in your resource stockpile, and then you can use those resources plus more you get to get new walls. So you're not losing everything.
It's super thematic that way, where you, like, if your wall gets destroyed, not all of it's destroyed, right? You're able
damaged,
to reuse some of the wood that you lost in that. But this game,
it's a fun game.
I love it. It's my game of the year currently for 2021 so far. That's all I got to say. And we are out of time. We got to run. So we will see you next week. Thanks again. Cheers.
See ya.
Hey there, Chad here from Of Dice and Men, the podcast on a streak, where we talk about board games, the people who play them, and the culture surrounding the hobby. Our streak of releasing episodes on a fortnightly cadence has been going strong, although now that I've said something, I'm sure we'll find a month delay somewhere in the near future. If there is a delay, it might be because I've continuously stayed up late playing my latest board game-esque obsession, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. It's not really a board game per se, it's a solo RPG, where you play out the life of an imaginary vampire living out a millennium of vampiric events, documenting how the world changes them and how they change the world. Before we get too far into it, to make sure everyone's on the similar terms, RPG is short for role-playing game. You've likely heard of Dungeons & Dragons, where players pretend to be half-orcs and elves and whatnot, fighting various monsters in various dungeons at the whim of a game master. While that's certainly an apt description of a lot of RPGs, the role-playing space has really taken off in the last few years, and you can now RPG in pretty much any setting. As Marines fighting a xenomorph, as yourselves surviving a zombie apocalypse, as gumshoes disrupting cult rituals, as preteens investigating mysterious laboratories. If you've got a scenario in your head, odds are someone's written an RPG for it. So it's no surprise that solo RPGs are a thing. They're exactly like they sound, a role-playing game that you play by yourself. Just like group RPGs are essentially a shared improv game between players with dice or another random element providing the prompts, a solo RPG is akin to a creative writing exercise, where some element of randomness is paired with a list of prompts that you navigate and let inspire your writing. That's exactly what 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is. You start with a bit of character creation like any RPG, by writing down your mortal character's lot in life, including their relationships, skills, material possessions, and background, before finally revealing who turned them into a creature of the night, as well as noting how your character was physically and permanently scarred by the experience. From there you embark on your vampire's life journey, provided by a simple D10 minus D6 mechanic, flipping through more than 200 generic yet inspiring prompts to guide your path forward. As you proceed, prompts will cause you to consume skills, gain and lose material possessions, foster and sacrifice relationships, battle other immortals, and about 100 other things until your character's story eventually comes to an end. One of the most interesting things about this solo RPG is how generic it really is and can be. The only thing the RPG asks of you is to create a vampire. There's no restriction on setting, timeline, backstory, or anything. This is mostly possible because the core concept, vampires, is so generic that it can work in pretty much any setting you imagine. As an example, both myself and Ryan from the podcast started playing 1,000-Year-Old Vampire at around the same time, and despite having the exact same book with the exact same prompts in it, we've created two entirely different characters with different results. His Italian architect's apprentice had an entirely different adventure from my Iroquois scout, and neither were held back by any implied narrative or setting. There is still a bit of game here as well for those who are looking for something more than a book of improv. Your character has memories, skills, and resources at their disposal, and prompts will, prompt you to gain or lose any of them. Your memories represent the events that are top of mind for your character, but like any human, your memory is prone to failure. You only have room for about 15 experiences in your head at any given time. As you play, you'll be forced to rearrange and forget events that happened to you over the millennium. While this doesn't have any specific gameplay effect necessarily, it does serve as yet another piece of info that you can use to craft your story. For example, when you come across a long-lost loved one, you may not necessarily recognize them if you've long since discarded their memory. In a similar vein, your character has skills which serve as named abilities your vampire can use. A good number of prompts will ask you to check a skill, which is essentially using it to perform a specific task. It's up to you which skill you decide to consume, and can entirely change the way your character may act or behave in a given situation. Consuming Negotiation allowed me to escape from a rival's capture with the promise that I would never return to their territory. If I had instead used a stealth attack skill, I may have turned the tables and instead captured them. Resources behave in a similar way, being gained or lost as the story proceeds. Finally, the packaging that Tim Hutchings had presented 1,000-Year-Old Vampire in is nothing short of inspiring. The hardcover book is visually presented as a mix of a well-used library book, an ancient tome of forbidden knowledge and illustration, and a personal diary. Within the gold foil covers, you'll find a clear and well-formatted set of rules and prompts, but the art and presentation does wonders to get the imagination flowing as you fall into your character and their life. It's as though the book calls to you from the table you left it on the night prior, tempting you to continue your story. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is for everyone. As I said, it's very much a creative writing exercise, and I'm certainly one of those kids who signed up for the bonus English Language Arts 20 writing course in high school. I enjoyed playing 1,000-Year-Old Vampire for the same reason I enjoy being a game master in other RPGs. Random prompts provided by others as a basis of creating a unique and interesting story. The only difference here is the prompts are provided by a book rather than other players. If writing was ever a hobby of yours, or if you've been itching to get back to an RPG, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire and other solo RPGs like it are very apt replacements that are worth adding to your collection. If you want to hear myself or Ryan drone on and on about the game even more, you're in luck, as we also discussed 1,000-Year-Old Vampire at the end of our last podcast. In addition, the three of us played a round of Name That Game using negative BGG user reviews as clues, which turned out to be quite fun. Search for Of Dice and Men and listen in to see if you pick up on any of the games before we do. Have a great rest of your week.
Hey everybody, it's M.
What's going on, folks? It's R.
And together we are Mr. Board Games.
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Mr_LonelyTable.
And on YouTube by following the link in our profile or searching for us, MR Board Games on YouTube.
Today is Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday. This is the second time we've been doing this show. And this week we are doing a game called Cosmic Voyage. Cosmic Voyage is not available yet, but it will be on Kickstarter. We were given a bit of an advance copy to give it a go. It's a dice rolling game of deep space exploration, cooperation, and luck. Lots and lots and lots of luck.
Oh my gosh, so much luck. And I have a Will Wheaton curse, apparently, so it took us lots of time, but it's a simple to learn, easy to play, fun little game that we got a prototype of, and we're happy to tote it to the world as it's going to be on Kickstarter, and we hope it gets off the ground for our good friend Andy.
Yeah, he attempted to do the Kickstarter previously, but I guess he just didn't get enough exposure, so he's going to give it a go. He hasn't given me the exact date, but it's coming up. It's definitely worth a check out. It's such a simple dice rolling game. It's literally just the cards have a number on them. You have to get a 4 and a 3, a 4 on the D8, the 3 on a D6, and if you get them or higher, you succeed. If not, you fail, and they've got a little icon that says, this is what happens if you succeed, and this is what happens when you fail. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and essentially, you're on a spaceship with your crew. You're trying to get home. 8 jumps to get home if you want to play the long version. 5 jumps if you want to cut the game a little bit shorter. Can also be played solo, which is super fun. And it's a great 2-player game, which is important to us as there's only the 2 of us.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of friends out this way, but hopefully that'll change because it's Saskatchewan.
Exactly.
But overall, I think that's what we've been playing this week. Quick little dice roller. Hope it gets somewhere, and I hope you guys think about checking it out later on in this this year, I guess. Yeah.
So until next week, you can check us out on YouTube or reach us on Twitter and Instagram at MR_LonelyTable. And until then, keep it on the rails.
And the dice on the table. See you next week.
everyone. Matt and John here from Friday Night Games. Yes, you heard that right. John is back, and that is great because I don't want to talk about Pretty Pretty Princess again.
Is that what you talked about?
Yeah, so welcome back to you, John. Thank God you're here. Just so everyone knows, you can find us at FridayNight.Games, Instagram at FridayNightGames_official, Twitter at FridayNightGMS, and I think I just said our website, but I'm going to say it again, FridayNight.Games. Okay, so John, what game are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, first I want to say thanks for taking a couple weeks to let me do stuff. I had a death in the family, so it was nice to just take a week off to kind of, process that, I guess. So thanks, Matt. I appreciate your work and dedication to the Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday. But today we are going to talk about a new game by Pandasaurus Games called Brew, designed by Steve O'Torres, art by Jake Morrison and Andrew Thompson.
It is a dice placement, area control, potion brewing game with a little bit of engine building.
As a player in Brew, you're playing as a mystic of the forest, and you're trying to get the most points by either controlling forests, collecting potions, or collecting cute animal companions, or doing all three.
The game is played over 4 months or 4 rounds. I guess 4 seasons. A round ends after every player has placed every single one of their 6 die. Each player will have 6 die, which includes 4 forest die and 2 elemental die.
The forage die are used to collect ingredients and control areas, and the elemental dies have 3 special abilities. So the water lets you collect an extra 2 resources. Fire lets you stop another player from controlling a forest space, and wind lets you collect one of your placed forage dies, take a resource or action, and then place the previous die back in your set for another turn at the expense of less control in a forest. But if you play it wisely, you can do it near the end of your turn when you know you're going to control that forest anyway, and rock it.
Yeah, so a player turn, each player will place a single die on either the town or a forest to control it. They can then brew 1 potion if they have the ingredients to brew the potion, or they can use a potion if they happen to have potions in their hand. Potions collected give you points at the end of the game, regardless of whether you use them or not.
When placing regular dice onto forests, it allows you to control that forest to collect points.
Potions, which are brewed using ingredients collected from the forest that you just placed, that John just mentioned, or you place dice at the main town, which give you powerful abilities that allow you to do maybe extra actions, a little bit of bonus resources, maybe train more animal companions.
And the animal companions give you some sweet bonuses during specific events, such as controlling a forest, and can be released and set free to collect extra points.
And finally, each player has an ability which leads into kind of the strategy on how to play the game. For instance, there might be a player who gets a discounted brewing, or there might be a player who gets to pull an extra animal companion.
So what do we like about the game there, Matt?
Well, I'm just going to point out to you. So first of all, it's on pre-order right now. I know if you're listening to this, you're probably Canadian. Pandasaurus has international shipping at a reduced price. It will not cost you $200 to buy brew from their website anymore. You could actually buy it for cheaper. And if you do, it comes with a mini expansion, which comes with 4 animals companions that was named through social media thing on their social media accounts. I guess it was named by the community. And the game is only $40, which is pretty awesome. And it's a pretty intense, highly strategic, medium weight game with beautiful art, fantastic custom die, and the game plays at about 30 minutes per person. So I think that's pretty reasonable. So you're getting all this for $30 is amazing. I would actually expect it to be like $80 in this day and time, to be honest with you.
Right. I loved how competitive it was when I played with my wife. She's very cutthroat when it comes to playing board games with me. Like we could be playing freaking like Uno, and she would probably like throw a card at my neck just to win, you know? And it was neck and neck the entire game, and we were really, really trying to screw each other over with the controlling of forests. But just how everything works together, like all the mechanics work together, especially the engine builder part of the game, where you know, you're using your potions and your animals to gain like extra resources, and so that you can brew more potions throughout the game and earn extra points, was really, I think it's pretty well thought out, and I really enjoyed that.
I really love the elemental die. I love the fact that you can use fire to screw over a player who's trying to control a forest, or you could use the wind dice cleverly at the end of your turn to kind of give you an extra turn, which I did and blew the people I was playing with away. And then water gives you extra resources, which obviously is helpful for the brews. The brews are super powerful potions, and you want to use them because they're going to give you sometimes extra dice, sometimes extra turns, sometimes swap dice. They're amazing. So
nice. Is there anything we didn't like about the game?
So when we played it, we actually played it in two groups. You led one group, and I led the other. And I heard feedback afterwards that someone in your group really isn't into medium games. So every card has writing on it, which means you have to read every card, and every card has an ability. So the game can actually be very complicated as it goes on. So it's not for people who like light games. I'm just going to put out there, if you only play light games, do not buy this game. This game is a medium weight. You really got to be into it to get it, and if you're not, you're really going to hate it.
And I had a terrible time playing online. I think just how everything works, it's really tough to play online, but when you get it in person, it's a totally different ball game and super enjoyable. And I don't think we played. Sorry, I'm in the wrong spot there. But there's nothing like about the game I don't like. It was just like the medium in which I played with the big group I didn't like.
Yeah, I think it's about 30 minutes per person, but online it's like an hour per person. So our game was going towards 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
But in person, you said it only took about 45 minutes to an hour, so which makes sense.
Right.
And then how do we play it wrong? Well, I don't think we did, but I do have one gotcha in there for you. I think the elemental dice, they give you the rules to the elemental dice at the very end of the instruction manual. Just make note that those dice are really powerful, and you should definitely know what they do.
Yeah,
because they're going to help you win.
I don't think I played it wrong, but if when I play it again, I'm gonna try to play differently. What I want to do is try to make sure when I take an animal or brew a potion that it's gonna give me resources that I need. So I'd like just be more aware of how everything kind of combos together. So I can get more resources to buy more powerful potions. I noticed when I played, I was buying like the cheaper potions because I didn't have enough of the resources for the more expensive ones. So just paying a little bit more attention to how I can gain access to more resources in my gameplay is going to be my next strategy when I play again.
That's a very good strategy. And on that note, I would recommend that if you play with the player powers, use that to help you figure out your strategy. So I had one that gave me a discount on buying potions, so it was a no-brainer that I should be buying potions with my character.
Right.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, awesome. So if you like what you hear, we're Matt and John at Friday Night Games. We release a podcast every Friday. This week will actually be about how my wife doesn't like playing games with me. So it's kind of a continuation from last week's Whatcha Played Wednesday. So nice. Make sure you check us out at FridayNight.Games, Instagram at FridayNightGames_official, Twitter at FridayNightGMS. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hello, I am A.A. Ron Milic.
And I'm Royce Calverley.
And we are definitely a board game podcast. A podcast definitely about board games, except when they're not. And we're here once again on Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday.
We definitely are.
Royce, what you been playing Wednesday?
I've been playing a game. It's inspired by the Clint Eastwood Unforgiven movie.
Ah. Really?
No.
No.
No. I've been playing Unforgiven, the Lincoln Assassination Trial by Tom Butler, Green Feet Games. It's new this year, 2021. This is so you imagine taking Seven Wonders Duel, all the great things about Seven Wonders Duel, and put a theme on it.
Nice.
That's what this is. This is all about the Lincoln assassination trials. This is all about influencing jurors, getting a verdict, scoring points, just like they did in the original trial.
Right.
You can do objections. You're going to have arguments. You're going to have evidence. It's a really neat card game based on that Seven Wonders pyramid-style card draft. So it's a 2-player card drafting game that re-implements that Seven Wonders pyramid draft. Really enjoy this one. It is so thematic. Like, obviously, Tom Butler loves his history, and has put everything he can into this game. I just got to recommend it. It's really a great card game.
So you're saying the Unforgiven movie wasn't about the Lincoln assassination?
No. Some cowboy thing, I think.
All right, fair enough.
So that's what I've been playing. What have you been playing, Aaron?
I have been playing an oldie but goodie, but on BGA. One of my favorite games and one of my wife's favorite games, probably her favorite game, Splendor, has made its way to BGA. It came out in 2014, Marc-Andre, Space Cowboy. If you haven't played Splendor, it's all about collecting chips and then buying jewels and then getting nobles to come visit you. And you're constantly collecting, and it's really neat the way it works. I guess on BGA, I like it a lot because it does all the work for you. As soon as you have the criteria for the nobles to visit, it does it for you automatically. It's not something you're going to miss accidentally when you're playing it live. It works really well, and I'm not surprised because I also have the Splendor game on my phone. It works really well as a digital game as well there. But as you mentioned in one of our episodes on Definitely a Board Game Podcast, without the chips, without playing with those really cool poker chips, there's just something a little missing. I like that it does the math for you. I like that it does the work for you, but it would have been nice. I guess I could just bring out the poker chips and play with them while I'm playing on BGA. But it is a fantastic game. It has an expansion as well. So if you want a great game that works good for 2 and definitely 4, I recommend Splendor. And if you're looking for a great new game on BGA, give it a try. Collect the money, collect the jewels, feel like a king, get visited by nobles. It's fantastic. One of my favorites.
Yeah, I like Splendor as well. It's interesting, though. Both of the things you just talked about are part of why I don't like the BGA version. It does everything for you. It shows you exactly what you need for each card. Yeah. You don't have to think, and I think that thinking is what makes the game fun. I think that's what makes the game competitive. And a good Splendor player versus just an average Splendor player.
Right.
The other thing you mentioned was the phone app.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the phone app is a problem.
Why is that?
I played Jeff from our game group, and he has the phone app, and has played it hundreds of times.
So he destroyed
And
you.
I got walloped. It turns out that if you play a game enough on the phone app, you're really, really good at it.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
I don't like the phone app either.
Yeah. But you know me, I'll look for any reason not to think. So... anyway, if you are on BGA, give it a try. Let us know what you think. Let me know if you like it, or let Royce know if you don't like it. And you can always reach out to us at definitelyboard@gmail.com. You can leave us a tweet at boarddefinitely on Twitter, at definitelyboard on Facebook. We have a guild on the Board Game Geek. Look for us there, Definitely Board Game Podcast. And as always, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and all these wonderful places. And that's the best way to reach us. And you can let us know what you've been playing on Wednesday. Sound good, Royce?
Sounds great. Bye, everybody.
What up,
Gamers. I'm Jayson.
I'm Julie, and together we're Dice and Dragons. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram at Dice and Dragons, and Twitter at Dice and Dragon.
Yes, and what is it, Julie?
It's Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday.
And today we're going to be talking about WW84, Wonder Woman card game by Cryptozoic Entertainment, designed by Andrew Kremer. Now, we've also been playing some Zombicide 2nd Edition, specifically the Washington ZC expansion. We talked a little bit about that last time. We may talk a little bit about it more, but we're going to focus on Wonder Woman for the moment. So, Julie, what did you think of this card game? I don't want to say the name of it. It's just obnoxious.
Well, I was surprised you picked it up since we didn't even finish the movie. We disliked the movie so much. I mean, we like Wonder Woman. You guys can't see because this is audio, but I am wearing my Wonder Woman t-shirt.
Yes, and the movie, just suffice it to say, there are a lot of problems with it, like some serious issues, especially how Wonder Woman takes advantage of essentially a random dude. And yeah, just a lot of really weird things that belong in a movie from the 80s, not in a movie in 2021. But that's neither here nor there. But
what is it?
It relates to the game because the movie wasn't good and neither is the game. Ooh, surprise, surprise. I was hoping that the game would be decent and it would be fun and easy to play with some non-gamers, maybe other Wonder Woman fans over beer and pretzels.
You can't take that away. It is easy to play.
It is definitely easy to play, but the theme is pasted on 100%. It would be better if it had nothing to do with Wonder Woman. So why don't you talk about the stills and that aspect of the game, Julie? That seems to offend you a lot more than me.
Well, no, I mean, the card quality is good. Let's give it a positive. The image
quality is good. But
yeah, but there's very few of them. I felt like there was like 10. You think that there's more than that? But,
not by much.
But I mean, the cards say enemy on them. They don't even say cheetah. They're all the same. Like there's a couple different images of cheetah, but they all.
And then other ones are just Wonder Woman holding a guy's leg or blocking a punch. Stuff that I don't even know was in the movie really.
And each of the enemies you have to use different actions to defeat them, which that is cool. I like that mechanic. However, they're all. Basically, you get to pick a certain number of civilians, tokens representing civilians when you defeat the enemy. The problem I have is that, okay, maybe you get, depending on what you do, you could get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 tokens based on the number of actions.
I think that's pretty cool because it gets you to do some different actions, and it's something that I think would work in a better developed game with better developed scoring. Now take it away because I know you're going to rip this apart.
The issue though is that, I'll give a very concrete example. One of the cards we tied. So we each got to pick 3 tokens.
And just to clarify, the reason why we tied is because there are certain conditions you have to meet to draw tokens. And if you tie, well, then you both get to draw an equal amount of tokens. Obviously with the player defeating the enemy going first.
So we got to pick 3 tokens each. I picked 3 tokens, you picked 3 tokens. I got 2 3s and a 1, and you got 3 1s. Now the thing is,
that's crazy.
Technically, both defeated equally. Yet I end up with 7 points, and you end up with 3 points. Now, how many more villains do you have, or enemies do you have to defeat to try to catch up? And I could, pull 1 card and 1 token and you pull 2 and still pull a 3 and you pull 2 1s and you're still behind. So for me that is a very frustrating thing. Now the one thing I found with this is that I wasn't invested in this game at all. I mean, it's a fast-paced game. It's easy to play. I never really got too involved, so I didn't care when you won or when I lost or whether I won. It was like, yeah, okay. Because there's not much strategy in it either. It's not a reflection of my skill or talent as a gamer. It's just how lucky I am pulling tokens.
Literally, it's luck of pulling tokens, luck of the cards, And then luck of the
That's
enemies
the
as well.
other thing that we didn't like.
So it's randomness on top of randomness on top of randomness. At this point, you might as well be playing a roll and move game and going around the board, or you know what, trying to draw random cards in a game of Munchkin, because at least if you can get that to end in 30 minutes, it was way more fun than Wonder Woman 8 cards.
Yeah, and in this case as well, one of the problems with it at 2 players is that you can get stuck based on the cards that you're drawing and not being able to play anything down, and therefore having to discard cards just to, you know, pick up more cards. That probably is eased or easier based on a higher player count, but that was another one of the difficulties with this game.
Now, we're definitely gone backwards with this game. This is bad license game territory. There's definitely some easy fixes to improve this. I honestly feel like this game was maybe designed for the Justice League or some other type of DC theme, and would have been a little bit more involved. But the call came in. They needed a game based on the new movie. So Cryptozoic dusted this one off and just basically chucked it out there at a low price point. Now, the nice thing is that the price point is not that bad. So if you do have some Wonder Woman fans and you're looking for maybe a quick card game to play with some family members that doesn't require too much investment, it might be worth to pick this one up for a couple of plays, but it's not going to last. If you're a gamer like us, like, stay away from this one. This is exactly what you expect a licensed game to be. It is not worthy of sitting on your shelf. You can put something better there. And I'm not the biggest fan of Munchkin. It has its problems, but I would rather play Munchkin than this any day of the week. So I think we've talked enough about this game. Julie, take it away.
So you can, if you want to hear more, you can listen to her review coming out.
It's already out, actually, by the time of this, because we're changing things up this week.
Okay, so there you go. You can check out YouTube for our review. Otherwise, it's time to remind people to
keep playing games.
Hello and welcome to the Tabletop Bellhop segment of Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday. I am Moe T, the Tabletop Bellhop, your cardboard concierge, answering your gaming and game night questions and striving to make everyone's gaming experience better. You can find me at tabletopbellhop.com and all over the internet and social media as Tabletop Bellhop, one word. If you've got a gaming or game night question for me to answer, send that to questions@tabletopbellhop.com or visit the webpage and click on Ask the Bellhop at the top of the page. The question I'm answering today is, what you been playing this past week? So for the last couple of weeks, we've been all about the Aventuria adventure card game from Ulysses Spiel. They were awesome enough to send us a pile of Aventuria stuff to check out a while back, and we're finally digging through that pile. Now, one of the things that took so long is that I have to admit, I was intimidated by all of the stuff they sent and totally clueless as to where to start. Now, after some back and forth with my contact, we learned that the box that just says Aventuria Adventure Card Game is actually the core set. That's the place to start. And they also suggested that I start with a small box expansion called The Master Tailor's Poltergeist. And that's exactly what we did. And I've got to say, those two boxes got us hooked. Now, for those that don't know, the Aventuria Adventure Card Game, it was originally released in Germany only, in German. It's a fantasy card game set in the world of The Dark Eye, or Das Schwarze Auge, which is Germany's most popular pen and paper role-playing game and setting. Yes, even more popular than Dungeons & Dragons. Now, back in 2016, Ulysses Spiel launched a successful Kickstarter to bring Aventuria to North America in a new translated second edition. That's the game we've been playing and what I'm talking about tonight. Now, the Aventuria Adventure Card Game is a non-collectible card game that can be played two ways. First off, in duel mode, which has many similarities to other dueling card games like Magic the Gathering, Ashes, or Sorcerer. In this format, it's a 2 to 4 player last man standing battle game. The other mode is a cooperative adventure mode game where a group of 1 to 4 players take on the role of heroes and play through a short single session or multiple act adventure. The core box contains 4 heroes, 3 short adventures, and 1 longer 3-act adventure. While I don't have time to get into the mechanics in this segment, I do strongly suggest checking out my written review on the blog, where I describe how to play Aventuria in both modes, as well as sharing my overall thoughts in the game. Now, what I will say here is that we love it. I love the difficult choice you have to make deciding which cards you want to turn into endurance. I love that each adventure features a narrative section at the start and that every single combat has been interesting and I would say whimsical. It's just never about just beating up all the bad guys. Now, getting back to the Master Taylor's Poltergeist expansion I mentioned, this is what we used for our first game, and I have to say this is one of the best small box expansions I've seen, not only for teaching you the game, but also getting you excited to see more and to play it. Now, this expansion features 4 simplified hero decks and a very short intro adventure that's amusing and a lot of fun. Now, I'm going to be doing a full review of this demo kit on tonight's live show. It'd be awesome if you join me for that at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. After playing the demo, my wife and I went through all of the adventures in the core books, and I gotta say each of them was a ton of fun. We were most impressed by how different each one felt to play through. I'm also pleased to say that due to random elements and 4 different difficulty levels presented for each, there's plenty of replayability in this box. And that's without even thinking about the fact that there is a whole Doom mode you can play probably infinitely. Now, after that, playing the physical game with my wife, I discovered that there's an Aventuria mod on Tabletop Simulator. And what this let us do is share our love of the game with my co-host Sean. And I'm pleased to say now he's also really digging this game and quite hooked. While the Tabletop Simulator implementation isn't perfect, it is awesome that I can play this game with my friend who lives hours up the 401. Overall, we are absolutely smitten with this game right now. This is the only thing I'm talking about, the only thing I'm looking up. I'm looking at more content. That pile of stuff that I was intimidated by, that I was actually scared by, has become a pile of treasure I can't wait to crack open and dig into. Just last week, I recorded 4 more unboxing videos of some of the expansions, which will be going live on YouTube's on Monday. Actually, the first one's up, which is the Arsenal, it's called, for Aventuria, which has custom dice and more ways to do deck building. So yeah, this past week, that's what's been going on, right? It's been Aventuria, and more Aventuria, physical and digital. Loving this game from Ulysses Spiel. I'm so glad they reached out. Well, that's all I've got for this week. It's time for me to crack open Forest of No Return, the first official adventure expansion for Aventuria, which maybe I'll be talking about next week. Find lots more gaming content at tabletopbellhop.com, and be sure to check out the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, which we record live Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on Twitch at twitch.tv/tabletopbellhop, with edited episodes showing up on your podcatchers early Tuesday morning. For the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, I am Moe T, the Tabletop Bellhop. Good night, and game on.
Hey there, it's Norm from the Cardboard Conjecture podcast and Bridge City Board Gamers here in Saskatoon. What have I been playing this last week? Well, every day, I'm so happy that this happens, every morning before Daniel goes to school, we sit down and play some crokinole while we wait for the bus. And I don't think it's, well, of course, I love the game, but I think what I love the most that the game allows us to accomplish is a moment where we can discuss his day and we can talk about any stress or, have a good dialogue about things that he's focusing on that he necessarily isn't going to have an outright conversation. And we can do that in the guise of playing crokinole. Yeah, we do some crokinole every morning. Love it. Absolutely love it. But I want to talk about a game that Daniel and I play quite often. And one of his favorites is The Magic Labyrinth, 2009, designed by Dirk Bowman. Publisher is Dre Margier Spiel. I know there's people just wincing right now from that pronunciation. And this is such a lovely game. I'll give you the description before I get into what the game's about and how it accomplishes what it does. It's so cute. This is from a BGG page. The little magician apprentices have lost some magic objects inside of the master's maze. Now they try to collect them before the master notices anything. However, in the maze, there are invisible walls that only one of the missing objects is revealed at a time, so they have to make their way through the maze by means of a good memory and lots of skill. So, how this is set up, it's basically one of these games where the box is part of the game. And in this function, I'll explain to you from the top down. So from the top, what you see is just a flat board that has sort of a overhead perspective of a maze, but it's not your typical maze of walls. It's a maze that at every interval of the grid pattern or intersection of the grid pattern, there's a post drawn up, kind of column of post. And but underneath, this is where the clever part of the game is underneath there is a grid pattern maze that you can build with little wall pieces of wood that fit into cardboard punched slots that's engineered underneath, so that underneath this you build a pattern of a maze that is accomplishable. So what you do is when you place the board on the top with that hidden maze on the bottom, science coming up, here you go. You have some magnets. Each pawn that you start off in the corner has a magnet on the bottom, and underneath you put a steel, like a steely. And as you're moving around, if you move on the board through an imaginary wall that has underneath a physical wall, it pushes the steely off of your pawn and drops it, and it falls down, and you have to restart. Now, tied into the theme of this game of the apprentices finding all their objects is at every square on the board, 90% of the squares on the board have an icon that matches a disc that's in the bag. And what you do is, one at a time, you pull out a disc of an item that you have to go find, and magic maze memory work your way through to get to this object. Once you have the object, you flip it over, you grab another one. The first to 5 wins the game. Wow, Daniel absolutely adores this game. He's got a really good memory when it comes to patterns, and he's a devious little cheat too, because you can as you approach the wall that you want to walk through, you could just barely feel the tap of the steely touching the wood. So what he'll do is he'll just kind of brush up and go, oh no, I want to go this way. So yeah, it's that part is absolutely entertaining. So I absolutely recommend. It says that this game is, here we go, ages 6 and up. This is, if you want to get your kids into gaming, this is such a fun game, and it keeps. I know now after playing this game, I have a poor memory. All right, so yeah, that's what we've been playing, and as always, when we get to this part of the podcast, I always appreciate the fact that you've listened up to here, and always appreciate the content contributors that participate every week, putting together such a wonderful, wonderful episode. So thank you to you for listening. Thank you to all of the cast members for being part of such a wonderful community. And as always, keep your stick on the ice and take care out there, eh? If you like the content that we produce and the type of show we're creating, please leave a happy rating on iTunes or the podcast platform that you use. This would be such a great gift and would help make it easier for others to find us when they search for Board Game Podcasts. This episode of Whatcha Been Playing Wednesday has been brought to you by the wonderful people at Cardboard Conjecture, who are so happy that it's so very close to being able to play games in public with people.